You really think you can just print a fake ticket and walk onto my plane? The gate agent's voice sliced through the terminal like a knife, turning every head in the waiting area. Maya stood frozen, her hand trembling as she held out a valid first-class boarding pass. She wasn't trying to cause a scene, she just wanted to go home. But Patricia, the gate agent with a badge that gave her too much power and a heart 2 sizes too small, had already decided Maya didn't belong. She was about to ruin this girl's life. What Patricia didn't know was that the name on the massive hangar visible right outside the window didn't just belong to the airport. It belonged to Maya's father. And he was watching. The automatic doors of Chicago O'Hare's Terminal 3 slid open with a soft whoosh, admitting a blast of freezing December air mixed with the scent of jet fuel and Starbucks coffee. Maya Sterling adjusted the strap of her duffel bag on her shoulder. She was exhausted. It had been a grueling semester at design school in New York, and the only thing keeping her upright was the promise of her father's guest room bed and her mother's gumbo waiting for her in Atlanta. She didn't look like the heiress to a multi-billion-dollar aviation empire. She looked like a tired 22-year-old college student. She wore a slightly oversized grey hoodie from a vintage shop in Brooklyn, black leggings and beaten-up Converse sneakers. Her hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she wore zero makeup. To the untrained eye, she was nobody. But the digital boarding pass on her phone screen screamed otherwise. First class. Seat 1A. Maya navigated the terminal with the ease of someone who had practically grown up on tarmacs. She bypassed the long snake of travelers at the economy check-in and headed straight for the priority access security line. ID and boarding pass, the TSA agent mumbled, not looking up. Maya handed over her driver's license. The name Maya J. Sterling was printed clearly next to her photo. The agent glanced at it, then at her, then back at the ID. He paused. Sterling. Any relation to Jeremiah Sterling? Maya offered a small, polite smile. She hated dropping the name, but she couldn't lie. Yes, sir. He's my dad. The agent's demeanor shifted instantly. His spine straightened, and a genuine smile broke through his boredom. No kidding, I used to work maintenance at his cargo hub in Memphis back in '08. Good man. Keeps his planes safer than the president's. You have a good flight, Miss Sterling. Thank you, she whispered, relieved. That was the kind of interaction she was used to: respectful, quiet, efficient. Her father, Jeremiah Sterling, was a legend in the industry, a black man who came from nothing, started as a mechanic, and built Sterling Aviation into a global logistics and private charter giant. He taught Maya that class wasn't about what you wore, it was about how you treated people. Maya cleared security and walked toward gate K-12. She stopped to buy a bottle of water and a bag of pretzels, moving slowly. She had plenty of time. When she arrived at the gate, the seating area was already packed. It was a chaotic mix of holiday travelers, crying babies, and stressed business people tapping furiously on laptops. Maya found a quiet corner near the floor-to-ceiling windows. She looked out at the tarmac. The sky was a bruised purple, the sun setting behind the jagged skyline of the airport. And there, about half a mile across the runway, stood a massive silver structure gleaming under the floodlights. Painted on the side in bold navy blue letters was the name Sterling Aviation, Hangar 4. It was one of her father's private maintenance hangars. He had just acquired it last year to expand his Midwest operations. Seeing his name there gave her a sense of comfort. He was actually in Chicago today for a board meeting at that very hangar, and he'd promised to meet her in Atlanta later that night. He had offered to send the private jet for her, but Maya had insisted on flying commercial. "I want to stay grounded, Dad," she had told him. "I don't want to be that girl who can't fly without a glass of champagne in her hand before takeoff." He had laughed. "All right, baby girl. But I'm buying the ticket. First class. That's non-negotiable." Maya smiled at the memory popping a pretzel into her mouth. She checked her watch. Boarding would start in 10 minutes. She glanced at the gate desk. There were 2 agents. One was a younger guy looking frazzled, typing rapidly. The other was a woman who looked like she had been chewing on lemons since the Reagan administration. Her name tag read Patricia. She had stiff blonde hair, sprayed into a helmet. Tight lips painted a severe shade of red, and eyes that scanned the waiting passengers with open disdain. She wasn't just doing a job, she was patrolling a border. Maya watched as an elderly man approached the desk to ask a question. "Excuse me, ma'am, is this the flight to Atlanta?" the old man asked softly. Patricia didn't even look up from her screen. "Read the sign, sir. It's right above my head. If you can't read, I can't help you." The man recoiled, embarrassed, and shuffled away. Maya frowned. Her father would have fired an employee on the spot for speaking to a customer like that. Sterling Aviation was built on service. A few minutes later, Patricia grabbed the microphone. It screeched with feedback, making everyone wince. "Attention passengers on Flight 492 to Atlanta." She barked, her voice nasally and sharp. "We are oversold. The flight is full. If your carry-on is too big, check it now. I will be measuring. Do not crowd the gate. I repeat, do not crowd the gate. We will begin boarding with first class and active military only." Maya stood up, gathered her bag, and moved toward the lane marked Priority, First Class. She was the first one in line. She just wanted to get to her seat, put on her noise-cancelling headphones, and sleep. She stepped up to the podium phone in hand screen, brightness up QR code, visible. "Good evening," Maya said pleasantly. Patricia looked at Maya's shoes, then her leggings, then the hoodie. Finally, her eyes landed on Maya's face. The look wasn't just rude, it was cold. It was the look of someone who had already calculated Maya's worth and decided it was 0. "We are only boarding first class," Patricia said, not reaching for the scanner. "Economy boarding is in 20 minutes. Go sit down." Maya didn't move. She kept her hand extended. "I know. I'm in first class." Patricia let out a short, derisive scoff. It was loud enough for the businessman behind Maya to hear. He shifted uncomfortably. "Miss..." Patricia said, her voice dropping to a patronizing, slow cadence, as if speaking to a toddler. "This lane is for our premium customers, people who have paid thousands of dollars for their seats. Group 5 is for general boarding. You need to step aside." "I understand that," Maya said, her pulse starting to quicken. "But I have a first-class ticket. If you scan my pass, you'll see." Patricia rolled her eyes, a theatrical gesture meant for the audience of passengers behind Maya. "Fine. Let's see it." She snatched the phone from Maya's hand, an invasion of personal space that made Maya flinch, and held it under the scanner. Beep. The machine flashed green. 1A. Sterling Maya. Maya reached for her phone. "Thank you." But Patricia didn't give it back. She stared at the screen, her brow furrowed. Then she looked at Maya, then back at the screen. The green light wasn't the answer she wanted. "Where did you get this?" Patricia accused, pulling the phone away from Maya's reach. "Excuse me. This boarding pass," Patricia snapped. "It's a screenshot. We don't accept screenshots. It has to be from the app." It's not a screenshot, Maya said, her voice trembling slightly. It's in my Apple Wallet. You can see the hologram moving. Patricia tapped the screen aggressively. It looks fake. The font is wrong. The font, it's the standard font, Maya said, baffled. The machine just scanned it. It turned green. It's valid. Machines make mistakes, Patricia declared, crossing her arms over her chest, still holding Maya's phone hostage. And frankly, sweetie, you don't fit the profile. The air around the gate seemed to vanish. The chatter in the line died down. The profile, Maya repeated, her voice dropping to a whisper. What profile is that? Patricia leaned over the counter, her perfume, something heavy and floral, wafting into Maya's face. The profile of someone who can afford a $3,000 last-minute seat. Now tell me the truth. Did you use a stolen credit card, or did you just Photoshop this to try and sneak an upgrade? The accusation hung in the air, heavy and ugly. Maya felt the heat rise in her cheeks. She was conscious of every pair of eyes boring into her back. The businessman in the suit, a young mother with a stroller, a group of college kids, they were all watching. I didn't steal anything, Maya said firmly, channeling her father's steel. Give me my phone and let me board. You are holding up the line. I am protecting the safety and integrity of this flight, Patricia shouted, playing to the crowd now. She turned to the passengers behind Maya. I apologize for the delay, folks. We have a security situation here. Someone trying to board with fraudulent documents. It's not fraudulent, Maya cried out, her composure cracking. Look at the name on the ticket. Maya Sterling. And let me guess, Patricia sneered, looking down her nose. You're the heiress to the Queen of England ID. Now. Maya's hands shook as she dug into her bag. She pulled out her wallet and produced her driver's license again. She slapped it onto the counter. Patricia picked it up by the corner as if it were contaminated. She squinted at it, holding it up to the light, bending it slightly to check the lamination. Illinois driver's license, Patricia muttered. Maya Sterling, 1204, Lakeshore Drive. She looked at Maya. You live in the Gold Coast in a multi-million-dollar penthouse. That's my parents' house, Maya said. Right? Patricia laughed, a harsh, dry sound. And I live in Buckingham Palace. Listen, girl, I've been working this gate for 20 years. I know a scammer when I see one. You've got the hoodie, the attitude, and a ticket that doesn't match your tax bracket. You are discriminating against me, Maya said, her voice gaining strength. You are denying me boarding based on how I look. I want to speak to your manager. I am the manager on duty for this gate, Patricia lied smoothly. She tossed Maya's ID and phone back onto the hard counter. They clattered loudly, and the phone slid dangerously close to the edge. And I'm denying you boarding. On what grounds? Belligerence, Patricia stated, a smug smile curling her lips. You're causing a disturbance. You're aggressive. I don't feel safe letting you on this aircraft. Aggressive. Maya stepped back, raising her hands. I haven't raised my voice until you accused me of theft. I have a valid ticket. Officer. Patricia waved her hand toward a wandering airport police officer near the food court. Officer. Over here. The officer, a heavy-set man named Miller, who looked like he was counting the minutes to retirement, jogged over his hand, resting on his belt. What's the problem, Patricia? Miller asked, sounding tired. He clearly knew her. This passenger is refusing to follow instructions. She's belligerent, and she presented a fraudulent boarding pass. Patricia rattled off, pointing a manicured finger at Maya. I need her removed from the gate area immediately. Maya looked at Officer Miller, pleading with her eyes. Officer, please. She scanned my ticket. It beeped green. She's lying. She just doesn't think I can afford the seat. Miller looked at Maya. He saw a young black girl in a hoodie. He looked at Patricia, the airline representative, in a crisp uniform. In the hierarchy of airport authority, the uniform usually won. "Ma'am," Miller said to Maya, "I need you to step away from the podium." "But I have a ticket," Maya insisted, holding up her phone again. "Look, it's right here." "Step away," Miller warned, his voice hardening, "or you'll be arrested for trespassing." "This is insane," Maya shouted. Tears of frustration pricked her eyes. "Do you know who my father is, if you just let me call him?" "Oh, here we go." Patricia threw her hands up. "The do you know who my daddy is card. Honey, unless your daddy is the pilot, nobody cares. Get her out of here, Miller." From the line behind Maya, a voice spoke up. "Hey, actually." The businessman in the suit stepped forward. He was a tall white man with graying hair. "I saw the scanner. It did turn green, and she hasn't been aggressive. You've been antagonizing her since she walked up." Patricia whipped her head around, her eyes flashing. "Sir, if you interfere with a security procedure, you will be denied boarding as well. Do you want to miss your flight to Atlanta?" The threat was clear. The businessman hesitated. He looked at Maya, an apology in his eyes, and stepped back. He had a meeting to get to. He couldn't risk it. Maya felt her heart sink. She was alone. "Move," Miller said, grabbing Maya's arm. "Don't touch me." Maya pulled away. "I'm leaving the line. I'm leaving." She grabbed her bag and backed away from the podium, her chest heaving. She retreated to the seating area, collapsing into one of the vinyl chairs. She was shaking uncontrollably. Patricia smoothed her uniform, looking triumphant. She picked up the microphone again. "Thank you for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. We will continue boarding first class. Welcome aboard." As the line moved past the desk, Patricia made a point of smiling overly brightly at every passenger, scanning their tickets with exaggerated efficiency. Every time she looked up, she shot a glance at Maya, a look that said, "I won. You lost. Know your place." Maya sat there clutching her phone. She felt small. She felt dirty. She wanted to scream. She unlocked her phone. She had 1 bar of signal. She didn't call customer service. She didn't call her mom. She opened her contacts and scrolled to Daddy. She hit call. It rang once, twice. "Hey, Princess." Jeremiah Sterling's deep, warm voice filled her ear. "Everything okay? You should be boarding by now." "Dad," Maya choked out, her voice cracking. The warmth in Jeremiah's voice instantly vanished, replaced by a low, dangerous rumble. "Maya, you're crying. What happened? Are you hurt?" "I'm at the gate," she sobbed, trying to keep her voice down so Miller wouldn't come back. "The lady, the gate agent, she won't let me on. She took my pass, said it was fake. She called the police on me. Dad, she said I didn't fit the profile." There was a valence on the other end of the line, a silence so profound it felt like the air pressure in the terminal dropped. "She said what?" Jeremiah asked, his voice deadly calm. "She said I look like a scammer. Officer Miller made me move. They're boarding without me." "Where are you exactly, Sopt?" "Gate K12, Terminal 3. "K12, Jeremiah repeated. "That faces the north runway, doesn't it?" "Yes," Maya sniffled, wiping her eyes with her sleeve. "I can see your hangar. I can see your name from here." "Okay," Jeremiah said. "Maya, listen to me. Dry your tears. Do not leave that gate. Stand up, stand tall, and wait." "Dad, what are you going to do?" "Are you calling the airline?" "No," Jeremiah said. "I'm not calling anyone. I'm at the hangar right now. I'm coming to get you. You're coming here. It'll take 20 minutes to drive around to the terminal loop." "I'm not driving, baby girl," Jeremiah said. "Look out the window." Maya pressed her forehead against the cool glass of the floor-to-ceiling window, her phone still clutched to her ear. Her father had hung up, but his command remained. "Watch the window." "You're still here." Maya flinched. Patricia was standing behind the podium, glaring at her during a lull in the boarding process. The first-class line had emptied, and she was about to call Group 1. "I told you to leave the area." Patricia hissed, her voice low enough that the other passengers couldn't hear the venom. "Officer Miller is doing a loop. If he comes back and sees you, you're going to jail. Is that what you want? A mugshot to go with that fake ticket?" Maya didn't turn around. She stared past her reflection, past the waiting plane, focusing on the massive silver hangar across the runway. "Something is happening," a passenger near the window murmured. "Look at that." Patricia frowned, momentarily distracted from her bullying. She glanced at the window. Across the tarmac, the massive bay doors of Sterling Aviation, Hangar 4, were sliding open. Usually this happened slowly, revealing a mechanic pushing a tug or a plane being towed. But not this time. From the dark cavern of the hangar, 3 matte black Cadillac Escalades burst onto the concrete. They weren't moving at the sluggish 15 mph limit of airport utility vehicles. They were accelerating, fast-moving in a tight, predatory formation. Each vehicle had amber strobe lights flashing on the dashboard, the universal signal for airfield authorization. "What in the world?" Patricia muttered. She grabbed her radio. "Ops, this is Gate K12. We have unauthorized vehicles crossing the active taxiway. Is there an emergency?" The radio crackled back the voice of the tower controller, sounding unusually tense. "Gate K12, hold your position. Do not, I repeat, do not push that aircraft back. Ground traffic is halted for VIP crossing. You have incoming." "Incoming?" Patricia asked, baffled. "Who is incoming us?" The convoy didn't follow the service roads. They cut straight across the tarmac, weaving past a United 737 that was taxiing, forcing the massive jet to brake. The Escalades were driving with a purpose that screamed authority. They were heading straight for Gate K12. Inside the terminal, the mood shifted. Travelers abandoned their laptops and crowded the windows. Phones were out recording. People loved a spectacle, and this looked like a scene from a Jason Bourne movie. "Is it the president?" someone whispered. "Maybe a diplomat. They're coming right here." The 3 SUVs screeched to a halt directly beneath the window where Maya stood. They parked in a barricade formation around the jet bridge stairs, the metal staircase that led from the tarmac up to the jetway door, usually used by pilots and ground crew. The doors of the lead and rear SUVs flew open. 4 men in dark suits stepped out. They weren't airport security. They looked like private security. Broad shoulders, earpieces, sharp eyes. They secured the perimeter of the middle vehicle. Then the rear door of the middle SUV opened. A man stepped out. He was tall, over 6'2", wearing a bespoke charcoal wool coat over a navy suit. He wore no hat, letting the biting Chicago wind whip his short salt and pepper hair. He didn't look around. He didn't look at the plane. He looked up straight at the glass window of the terminal. Even from 2 stories down, Maya saw his eyes. It was her father, Jeremiah Sterling. He moved with a terrifying calm. He walked to the keypad at the bottom of the jet bridge stairs. Usually you needed a specific code and a high-clearance cider badge to open that door. Jeremiah didn't even pause. He swiped a card, punched a code, and the heavy steel door clicked open instantly. He disappeared into the stairwell. Patricia was watching this, her mouth slightly open. She turned to the pilot, Captain Henderson, who had just stepped out of the jetway to grab a coffee. "Captain, who is that?" Patricia asked, pointing down. Someone just breached the airside stairs. Captain Henderson looked out the window, then paled. He dropped his coffee cup. It splashed onto the carpet, but he didn't notice. "Oh, God," the captain whispered. "What should I lock the jetway door?" Patricia panicked, reaching for the handle. "Don't you dare touch that door," the captain snapped, his voice trembling. "That's not a breach, Patricia. That's the landlord." The sound of heavy footsteps echoed from the jetway tunnel. Not the soft thud of luggage, but the hard, rhythmic strike of dress shoes on metal. The passengers at the gate fell silent. The tension was palpable. Patricia stood behind her podium, her hand hovering over the phone to call the police, uncertainty warring with her ego. Then the door from the jetway burst open. Jeremiah Sterling strode into the gate area. He brought the cold air with him, an aura of absolute suffocating power radiating from his frame. The two security guards who had flanked him stayed by the door, arms crossed, effectively sealing the exit to the plane. Jeremiah didn't yell. He didn't scan the room. His eyes locked instantly on the one person who mattered. "Maya," he said. His voice was a deep baritone that carried without effort. Maya, who had been shrinking into herself in the corner, let out a ragged breath. "Dad!" She ran to him. Jeremiah caught her, wrapping her in a hug that looked like it could shield her from a nuclear blast. He held her tight for a long moment, kissing the top of her head, whispering something in her ear that made her nod and wipe her face. Then he let her go, keeping one protective arm around her shoulder. He turned to face the podium. The silence in Gate K-12 was deafening. Even the babies seemed to have stopped crying. Jeremiah walked toward the desk, Maya tucked under his wing. He stopped 3 feet from Patricia. He towered over her, but he didn't lean in. He stood perfectly straight, adjusting his cuffs. "I assume," Jeremiah said, his voice terrifyingly polite, "that you are the agent who decided my daughter didn't fit the profile." Patricia swallowed. Her throat felt like sandpaper. She looked at the man's suit, Italian wool. She looked at the watch on his wrist, a Patek Philippe that cost more than her house. And then she looked at his face. It was the face of a man who built empires, and he was looking at her like she was a structural defect in a wing. But Patricia was a creature of habit and defensiveness. When cornered, she attacked. "Sir," Patricia stammered, trying to regain her authority. "You cannot be in this area. You bypassed TSA. This is a federal security breach. I have already called the police on this young woman, and I will have them arrest you too if you don't." "You called the police on her," Jeremiah interrupted. He didn't ask it as a question. He said it as a confirmation of a crime. She presented a fraudulent ticket, Patricia shrilled, pointing a shaking finger at Maya. "She was belligerent. And now you, whoever you are disrupting a federally regulated flight." "Whoever I am," Jeremiah repeated softly. A dark amusement danced in his eyes, but it wasn't a happy look. He reached into his inner coat pocket. Patricia flinched. Officer Miller, who had seen the commotion and was jogging back over, put his hand on his taser. "Sir, hands where I can see them," Miller shouted, panting as he arrived. Jeremiah ignored Miller completely. He pulled out a black lanyard with a hard card enclosed in plastic. He tossed it onto the podium. It landed with a sharp clack. It wasn't a boarding pass. It was an all-access airport authority credential. But unlike the ones the pilots wore, this one had a gold border. And the title under his name didn't say crew or staff. It read, Chairman of the Board, Strategic Partner. "Officer Miller," Jeremiah said, without looking at the cop, "I suggest you take your hand off your weapon. Unless you want to be working mall security by tomorrow morning. Read the badge." Miller stepped forward, squinted at the badge, and his eyes went wide. He snapped his hand to his side, standing at attention. "Mr. Sterling, I didn't know." "Mr. Sterling," Patricia echoed. The name bounced around her skull. "Sterling." She looked at Maya. Maya Sterling. She looked at the ticket on the screen she had denied. Sterling. She looked out the window at the hangar. Sterling Aviation. The color drained from her face so fast she looked like a corpse. You're Jeremiah Sterling," she whispered. "I am," Jeremiah said. "And you are holding my daughter's phone. Give it to me." Patricia's hands were shaking so badly, she fumbled the phone. She slid it across the counter. Jeremiah picked it up. He glanced at the screen, which still showed the valid boarding pass. He turned the screen toward the crowd, toward the businessman who had tried to help earlier, toward the passengers filming. "Valid," Jeremiah announced to the room. "First class, paid for by me personally." He turned back to Patricia. The air pressure in the room seemed to drop another 10 degrees. "You told my daughter she was a scammer," Jeremiah said, his voice dropping an octave. "You publicly humiliated her. You profiled her based on her clothes and the color of her skin, and you decided that she didn't belong in the front of the plane." I was just following protocol," Patricia squeaked. "We have to be careful. Fraud is up. I didn't know she was your daughter." "And that," Jeremiah cut her off, his voice cracking like a whip, "is the problem." He leaned in closer, his eyes blazing. "If she had been anyone else's daughter, you would have gotten away with it. You would have stranded a young girl in Chicago in December because you didn't like her hoodie. You think because she's mine, this is over. No, this is just beginning. Because I'm going to make sure you never do this to anyone's child ever again." "You can't threaten me," Patricia said, though her voice was thin. "I have a union. I followed procedure. You're just a rich bully throwing his weight around." Jeremiah laughed. It was a cold, dry sound. "Bully." He pulled out his own phone. "Patricia, look out the window one more time." Patricia looked. The 3 Escalades were still there. But now other vehicles were arriving. 2 airport operations trucks, a police cruiser, and a sleek sedan with flags on the hood. "I didn't just come here to pick up my daughter," Jeremiah said. "I called a board meeting, right here, at gate K12. "What?" Patricia breathed. "I own the leasing contract for this terminal's maintenance," Jeremiah said casually. "And I am the primary logistics partner for this airline. I just got off the phone with your CEO, Daniel Ryman. He was very interested to hear why his biggest investor was stopped on the tarmac." Jeremiah pointed to the jetway door behind him. "Daniel is in London, but the station manager is coming up those stairs right now. And Patricia." Jeremiah checked his watch. "You have exactly 30 seconds of employment left." The heavy door from the jetway swung open for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. But this time it wasn't a billionaire making an entrance. It was a man named Frank O'Connell, the station manager for the airline's entire O'Hare hub. Frank looked like a man who was having a heart attack in slow motion. He was holding a walkie-talkie in one hand and a tablet in the other. Sweat beading on his forehead despite the winter chill. He had sprinted from the administrative offices in Terminal 2 the moment he got the call from headquarters. He stopped, chest heaving, taking in the scene. He saw the crowd of passengers' phones raised like a firing squad. He saw Officer Miller looking unsure of his life choices. He saw Patricia, pale, and trembling behind the podium. And finally, he saw Jeremiah Sterling, the man whose company supplied the fuel, the maintenance and the cargo logistics for half the airport, standing like a statue of judgment in a navy suit. "Mr. Sterling," Frank gasped, hurrying forward, extending a hand that Jeremiah ignored. "I am so incredibly sorry. I just got off the line with the CEO. I came as fast as I could." Jeremiah looked at Frank's hand, then up at his face. He didn't shake it. "Frank," Jeremiah said, his voice level but cold. "It's been a while. The last time we spoke, we were discussing the renewal of your fleet's de-icing contract. I seem to recall you assuring me that this airline valued excellence and respect above all else." "We do, sir. We absolutely do," Frank stammered. "Then explain to me." Jeremiah gestured to Maya, who was still standing close to him, clutching her bag. "Why my daughter was accused of being a criminal, publicly humiliated, and threatened with arrest for the crime of trying to board a flight she had a valid ticket for." Frank turned his gaze to Patricia. His expression shifted from fear to fury. "Patricia," Frank barked, "what happened here?" Patricia, sensing the walls closing in, decided to double down. It was a desperate, foolish move, but panic makes people do irrational things. "Frank, you have to listen to me," she pleaded, her voice shrill. "The girl, she was acting suspicious. She was wearing a hoodie, looking disheveled. She came up with a digital ticket that the scanner rejected. I was just following the fraud prevention protocol. And then she got aggressive and I had to call Miller. I was protecting the flight." She pointed an accusing finger at Jeremiah. "And then this man, he just breached security. He came up the jetway stairs." "That's a federal violation. Frank, we should be arresting him." Frank stared at her as if she had grown a second head. "The scanner rejected the ticket?" Frank asked slowly. "Yes," Patricia lied. "It red-lighted. It was a fake screenshot." Jeremiah smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. "Is that so?" He turned to the crowd. "Did anyone see the scanner?" "It was green," the businessman in the suit shouted from the back. "Green light," a college student chimed in. "I got it on video," a woman near the window yelled, waving her phone. "I was filming because she was being so rude to the old man earlier. I have the green light on camera." Patricia's eyes darted around the room. The crowd had turned into a jury. They don't know what they saw," Patricia stammered. "It was a glitch." "Frank," Jeremiah said softly, "check the logs." "Do it," Frank ordered, stepping around the podium to stand next to Patricia. He grabbed the mouse. I can't log in right now. The system is frozen." Patricia lied, trying to block the screen with her body. "Move," Frank growled. He physically nudged her aside. The crowd went silent. The only sound was the clicking of the keyboard as Frank navigated the airline's internal boarding system. Jeremiah waited. Maya watched her father, awe washing over her. She had seen him in business mode before, but never like this. He wasn't yelling. He was dismantling Patricia with pure, undeniable facts. "Here it is," Frank said, staring at the screen. He read the data aloud, his voice echoing in the quiet gate area. "Timestamp 1642. Passenger Sterling Maya, seat 1A. Scan result valid. Boarding successful." Frank scrolled down. "Timestamp 1643. Manual override initiated by Agent ID P4492 Patricia. Status changed to UN boarded. Reason code entered gate agent discretion." Frank stopped reading. He slowly stood up and looked at Patricia. The silence was heavy, suffocating. You manually unboarded her, Frank whispered, shaking his head in disbelief. After a valid scan. And then you lied about it to a police officer. I thought it was a mistake, Patricia cried, tears starting to stream down her face, ruining her makeup. She didn't look like she belonged in first class. Frank, I was just using my judgment, your judgment. Jeremiah stepped in, his voice booming now. Your judgment told you that a young black girl in a hoodie couldn't possibly afford a seat on your plane. Your judgment told you to call the police on a college student trying to get home for Christmas. Jeremiah leaned over the counter, getting face to face with her. That's not judgment, Patricia. That is prejudice, pure and simple. You looked at my daughter and you didn't see a passenger. You saw a target. I'm sorry, Patricia sobbed, realizing the game was up. I'm so sorry. I was stressed. It's the holidays. Please, Mr. Sterling. I've worked here for 20 years. I have a mortgage. You should have thought about your mortgage before you tried to have my daughter arrested, Jeremiah said coldly. He turned to Frank. Frank, I want her removed. Now! Done, Frank said. He turned to Patricia. Give me your badge. Frank, please. Patricia grabbed his arm. You can't do this. Give me your badge, Frank shouted. With shaking hands, Patricia unclipped her ID badge, the symbol of her petty power, and handed it to the station manager. You are relieved of duty effectively immediately pending a termination hearing, Frank said formally. Pack your personal items. You are leaving the secure area. And Frank, Jeremiah interjected. One more thing. Yes, Mr. Sterling. She called the police to have a trespasser removed, Jeremiah said, gesturing to Officer Miller, who was now standing awkwardly by the wall. I think that's a fantastic idea. Officer Miller. Miller straightened up. Yes, sir. This woman is no longer an airline employee. She has no valid badge. Therefore, she is a civilian in a secure federal zone without a ticket. Jeremiah's eyes gleamed with hard justice. I believe the protocol is to escort such individuals out of the airport immediately. Frank nodded slowly. That is the protocol. Jeremiah looked at Patricia. Karma is a flight that always lands on time. The turn of events was so sharp, so brutal, that the passengers gasped. Patricia stood there, stripped of her badge, stripped of her authority. She looked small. The arrogance that had radiated from her just 10 minutes ago was gone, replaced by the hollow look of someone whose life has just imploded. Officer Miller walked up to the podium. He didn't look happy about it. He knew Patricia, but he also knew who signed the paychecks of the people who ran the airport. He wasn't going to go down with her ship. Ma'am, Miller said, his voice void of the earlier camaraderie. I need you to grab your purse and step away from the computer. Miller, come on, Patricia pleaded, wiping snot from her nose. It's me. We have coffee every Tuesday. Let's go, Patricia, Miller said, taking her gently but firmly by the elbow. Don't make a scene. The irony was thick enough to choke on. Don't make a scene. The exact words she had used on Maya. Patricia grabbed her purse from under the counter. She looked at the line of first-class passengers she had been fawning over earlier. She looked for sympathy. She found none. The businessman looked away. The mother with the stroller glared at her. She looked at Maya. Maya didn't look triumphant. She just looked tired. She didn't smirk. She simply watched her hand holding her father's arm. Move along, Miller said. He began to walk Patricia away from the gate back toward the main terminal concourse. It was a long walk. The boarding area for K-12 was deep in the terminal. As they walked past the seating area, a slow ripple of sound began. It started with one person, the college student in the back. Clap. Then another. Clap. Clap. Suddenly, the entire gate area erupted in applause. It wasn't a raucous cheer, but a steady, rhythmic clapping. It was the sound of justice. People were clapping for Maya, clapping for Jeremiah, and clapping for the fact that for once the bully didn't win. Patricia kept her head down, staring at the dirty airport carpet, her shoulders shaking as the sound of the applause followed her out of the terminal. She was being escorted out like a criminal past the very security checkpoint where she had spent 2 decades judging others. Back at the gate, the atmosphere lightened instantly. Frank, the station manager, wiped his brow. He turned to Jeremiah. "Mr. Sterling again, I am deeply sorry. We will be launching a full internal investigation into her past conduct. If she did this to your daughter, she's done it to others. You can be sure of that," Jeremiah said. "I want a report on my desk by Monday morning, Frank, or I'll be moving my cargo fleet to Midway Airport." "You'll have it Sunday night," Frank promised. Jeremiah turned to the young man behind the counter, the frazzled agent who had been working next to Patricia. He looked terrified, like he was next on the chopping block. "You," Jeremiah said. The young man jumped. Yes, sir." "What's your name?" "Kevin, sir." I just started 2 weeks ago. I didn't say anything because she's my training supervisor." "I'm sorry." Jeremiah studied him. He saw the fear, but he also saw that Kevin had tried to type silently, while Patricia was ranting, likely trying to help in his own way, but paralyzed by the hierarchy. "Fear of a bad boss is a dangerous thing, Kevin." Jeremiah said, his voice softer now. "But silence is complicity. Remember that." "Yes, sir. I will. Board the flight, Kevin." Jeremiah nodded. "These people want to go home." Jeremiah turned to Maya. The fierce corporate gladiator vanished, replaced instantly by the gentle father. "You okay, baby girl?" he asked, brushing a stray hair from her face. Maya let out a long breath, her shoulders dropping. "I am now. I really thought I was going to jail, Dad." "Not on my watch," Jeremiah said. "Come on. Let's get you on the plane." "Are you coming?" Maya asked. "No. I have to finish the meeting at the hangar. The board is waiting and I made quite the exit." Jeremiah chuckled. "But I'm not leaving you alone." He snapped his fingers. One of the large security guards who had come in with him stepped forward. "Marcus is going to fly with you to Atlanta," Jeremiah said. "He'll sit in 1B. Nobody is going to bother you." Maya smiled. "Thanks, Dad." "And Maya," Jeremiah held her shoulders. "Never let anyone make you feel like you don't belong in the room, or the seat. You earned your place at that school, and you are a Sterling. You belong wherever you stand." "I know," Maya whispered. She hugged him one last time, grabbed her bag, and walked toward the jetway. As she scanned her phone at the podium where Kevin was now beaming at her, the machine beeped. A loud, clear, beautiful sound. Green light. Maya walked down the jetway. But the story wasn't quite over. Because while Patricia had lost her job, the internet was just getting started. The cabin door closed, shutting out the noise of the terminal. For the first time in 2 hours, Maya could breathe. She sank into seat 1A, the wide leather chair feeling like a sanctuary. Marcus, her father's security guard, settled quietly into 1B, giving her a reassuring nod before opening a magazine. Before the engines even spooled up, the cockpit door opened. Captain Henderson stepped out. He didn't just stand by the galley. He knelt next to Maya's seat, so he was at eye level with her. Ms. Sterling, the captain said, his voice low and sincere. I want to personally apologize for what happened at the gate. I've flown for this airline for 30 years, and what I saw today was unacceptable. We are honored to have you on board. Thank you, Captain, Maya said softly. I just want to go home. We'll get you there smooth and fast, he promised. I've already cleared a direct route with ATC. Sit back and relax. As the plane taxied, Maya looked out the window. They rolled past the private hangars. She saw Hangar 4 gleaming in the distance. The black Escalades were still there, tiny dots from this distance. She pressed her hand against the glass. Thank you, Dad. She put her phone in airplane mode, unaware that while she was about to fly at 30,000 feet, her story was about to travel much, much faster. While Maya slept across the Midwest, the video taken by the woman at the gate was uploaded to TikTok. The caption was simple. Gate agent tries to bully the wrong girl. Wait for the dad to show up. Karma. O'Hara. Sterling Aviation. By the time Maya's flight crossed the Kentucky border, the video had 100,000 views. By the time they began their descent into Atlanta, it had 3 million. The internet is a powerful judge, and it works faster than any court system. Users identified Patricia within an hour. They found her LinkedIn. They found old complaints on travel forums describing a blonde agent at K-12 with a nasty attitude. The comment section was a landslide of vindication. The way she switched up when she saw the dad's suit. Imagine telling the landlord he can't come in. I worked with her in 2015. She was a nightmare then too. Glad she finally got caught. But the real blow came from the airline itself. Before the plane even landed, the airline's official Twitter account posted a public statement. We are aware of the incident at O'Hare regarding discriminatory behavior by a gate agent. The employee has been terminated effective immediately. We do not tolerate bias of any kind. We have reached out to the Sterling family to apologize. While Maya was descending toward home, Patricia was sitting in her car in the employee parking lot, sobbing. She had been escorted out of the building like a thief. She had to hand over her badge, her parking pass, and her uniform scarf. She sat in her freezing cold sedan, clutching the steering wheel. Her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Friends were texting her links to the video. Strangers were finding her Facebook profile and leaving comments that made her stomach turn. She tried to call her union rep. Sorry, Patricia, the rep said, his voice clipped. I saw the video. You manually unboarded a valid passenger and lied to police. That's gross misconduct. We can't defend that. You're on your own. She stared at the dashboard. 20 years of seniority. Her pension, her benefits, gone in 20 minutes because she couldn't stand the sight of a black girl in a hoodie sitting in first class. She started the car, but her hands were shaking so hard she couldn't get it into gear. She realized with a sinking dread that in the aviation industry, a small world where everyone knows everyone, she would never work at a gate again. She wouldn't even be hired to work at the pretzel stand. She was blacklisted. The karma wasn't just that she lost her job, it was that she had become a cautionary tale. She was no longer Patricia the gate agent. She was that woman from the viral video. And the internet never forgets. The flight landed in Atlanta a little after 9:00 p.m. When Maya walked off the jet bridge, she expected to just grab an Uber. But as she entered the arrival hall, she saw a familiar face. Her mother, radiant and elegant in a cream coat, was waiting right past the security line. Beside her was Jeremiah. Maya stopped. Dad, how did you beat me here? Jeremiah grinned, hugging her tightly. I have a Gulfstream, baby girl. It flies faster than a 737. I wasn't going to let you walk out of this airport alone. You flew all the way here just to drive me home. I'd fly to the moon to bring you home, Jeremiah said, kissing her forehead. Now come on. Your mum made gumbo and it's getting cold. They walked out of the terminal together, Jeremiah on one side, her mother on the other. A few people in the terminal recognized Jeremiah from the news, whispering and pointing, but nobody dared to approach. They just watched the family walk by, heads held high. Maya climbed into the back of her father's car, the smell of leather and safety wrapping around her. She checked her phone for the first time since takeoff. She saw the notifications, the millions of views, the apology from the airline, the overwhelming support from strangers all over the world. She looked out the window at the Atlanta skyline glowing gold in the night. She wasn't just the girl in the hoodie anymore. She was Maya Sterling, and she knew with absolute certainty that she would never let anyone make her feel small again. She locked her phone, leaned her head on her mother's shoulder, and smiled. She was home. And that is the story of how one gate agent learned the hard way that you never judge a passenger by their hoodie. Patricia thought she held all the power because she stood behind a podium, but she forgot the golden rule of customer service: treat everyone with respect, because you never know who is standing in front of you or whose name is on the hanger outside the window. It's a satisfying end, but it's also a reminder. Discrimination happens every day in quiet ways that don't get caught on camera. Maya was lucky she had backup, but so many others don't. What would you have done if you were in that line? Would you have spoken up like the businessman, tried to, or stayed silent? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story of instant karma and justice, please crush that like button. It really helps the channel. And don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.